All right, call this meeting to order at 5:40 PM. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Director Burnworth,
Here.
Director Gitzel,
Here.
Director Garcia,
Here.
Director Berger,
Here.
Director Valdez,
Yes.
Director Ewan.
Here.
Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready and begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now we'll move on to item 5, discussion and action to appoint new board member for unexpired term. The former director Arturo Proctor's term through November 2026 election cycle, subject to attestation qualifications.
So we had thought to bring the leading candidate from the last round of interviews to this board meeting to be sworn in and appointed by the board, or considered for appointment by the board. But just this morning, Mr. Castro emailed me letting me know that while he appreciates the opportunity, he has to withdraw as a candidate because he received news that he's going to be transferred out of town for work. So the change limits his availability and would prevent him from attending most meetings in person. So he's withdrawing, and so we won't have his swearing in today. So the board has a couple options. I also wanted to let you know that today we did receive another letter of interest to fill the vacancy from Mr. Ralph Cordova Jr., who is an attorney. And he wrote a great letter of interest. I'm happy to read it to you. I normally would have forwarded it to you and had it ready for you to read today or earlier, but I just got it at around 3:30 this afternoon. So I was already on the road when I got it. But he's got a great resume. He is an attorney and has a lifelong Imperial Valley resident. So we've got, and I don't think Mr. Cordova is here right now, right? No, so we've got a couple options. You have until March 10 to fill this vacancy. That's the deadline date. There's 60 days from declaration of the vacancy, and the vacancy was declared January 9th. So after the 60 days, it gets kicked to the Board of Supervisors to make an appointment to this board. So the next regular board meeting is February 26th. You can make an appointment then. You can call a special meeting anytime between now and March 10 to make an appointment. The first meeting in March will be too late. That's March 12th. So, you know, I can forward Mr. Cordova's resume and letter of interest for your consumption. If he shows up later today, we can hold this item and reopen it later if you want to ask him some questions and interview him. We can, you know, the notice of vacancy continues on the website. We can issue another solicitation. We can, you know, board members are welcome to do one-on-one attempts at recruitment towards community folks that you think might be good between now and February, and bring those folks to the next board meeting for consideration. You know, you've got some options here. So there's no candidate right now that is present to be sworn in. You know, if you wanted to, you could appoint, for example, Mr. Cordova tonight if you want to, but I'm sure you want to have a chance to talk to him first. So just wanted to open it up for ideas and present you with the options, because you set the rules here. There's no requirement. There's not even a requirement to interview, for example. The only requirement is that the person that you appoint has to be a registered voter in the county of Imperial. So at this point, you know, if you want an idea, I can forward Mr. Cordova's credentials and letter of interest to the board, and then we can put an item on the agenda for the 26th to basically discuss and consider appointment of another person, and leave it ambiguous as to the name in case other candidates, you know, present themselves between now and then. But it's at your pleasure.
So we can move this item to later on in the agenda so that in case he does arrive.
Yes,
Do I-
you can hold it and reopen it later on in the agenda if you'd like, revisit it.
I'd like to make a motion to do that.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion carries.
So we'll revisit this at the end of the board meeting to see if Mr. Cordova shows up. I also wanted to let you know, yeah, we can revisit it later. And then we have more information for you.
All right, so now move to item 7, approval of the agenda. In the case of an emergency, items may be added to the agenda by a majority vote of the Board of Directors. An emergency is defined as a work stoppage, a crippling disaster, or other activity that severely imperils public health, safety, or both. Items on the agenda may be taken out of sequential order as their priorities determined by the Board of Directors. The board may take action on any item appearing on the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I so moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Parker and a second by Garcia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Now move on to item 8, board training critical elements of effective governance by Jeff Bills.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you again.
I was gonna say, hold on. If anybody wants to get food so we can eat during our training, we can take a 2-minute break. People want to get plates. It's
Done.
now's the time, yeah.
Otherwise, it's gonna be an hour from now, your food's gonna be full.
Get in front of me. You don't want to be behind me anymore.
I do encourage you.
I've got a broken foot, so I'll be last.
Okay,
All right.
there you go, okay, jump in.
No, I got it. I got it.
Mr. Bills, would you like anything?
No, thank you.
Anybody else?
I can't present on a full stomach.
Gotta check my glucose. See how much I can eat.
I can't spell it. Let's walk them.
I know.
We can deliver if you want some.
Oh, no, I can walk, but I just don't want to get it, I'm kind of wobbly on this. I gotta wear it for 4 months. Oh dear. It just old age, it's like skinny.
No of the kicker.
My husband does. Make a bigger skin. I'll send me the gel on top. Oh my God, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Never.
Thank you.
How did news members become aware that I'm opening?
How?
How did you let people?
Well, we have an obligation to post the notice. We send the notice to the county and then we post it on our website and then post it physically in 3 locations throughout the hospital. And then, what else? I think 4 house. I don't think we opted for a publication. this time.
I only ask because I remember it seems not that long ago, but in the old days, the requirement was it is in the local newspaper.
Yeah, that's not, that's an option for sure. It's not a requirement. The way, for example, like bids for like a construct, like a public works job, that or like equivalent. It's called a newspaper of general circulation.
I saw Mr. Proctor a couple of days ago and he didn't take the job.
That was gonna be part of my later news. I texted him and he texted me heard that.
Him to read, to work on the East Coast. And he's like, no, that's not what I agreed to.
Yes, he can.
He
Well, that's
withdrew from.
an option I was gonna,
Be reinstated.
yes, he could. You
If
could.
he's interested.
I mean, he was the original appointee, so you could reappoint him, but I would want to ask him
First.
directly, like, do you want to be reappointed? Because if so, you could do that tonight, you could do it next board meeting, you could think about it.
Just tell them we have to interview him.
I know.
You're so bad.
And then go through it and then just tell him. He didn't want to.
To the East Coast? No way.
And what
They wanted
For
him
a
to
year.
spend 2 years, yeah.
Was, can you take the job or it's going to retire to?
But they didn't tell him that when he first
Yeah, because they wanted him to go back east and that was originally.
went to training. And they told him, oh, by the way, you gotta go to the East Coast. He was like, no.
Big,
It's a big change.
big change.
Things so quickly.
Oh. Especially.
Vice President, would you like me to start? It
Yes,
doesn't bother
please.
me to
Go
make
for it.
this really formal while you're having some supper.
Do it.
Okay. I was just laughing to myself, because, it's not very often that a board has to replace a board member 3 weeks before a merger finalizes. But thanks again for having me. I have a special place in my heart for this valley, and it's always nice to be out here with you. So I appreciate being part of what you're trying to accomplish. How are things going? Give me a little sense of how things are going. You've been functioning as a board for how long now?
2 years? Or you, 2 years?
Okay.
2.
Are you starting to feel like you're maturing as a governing body, so to speak? How can you tell?
I don't think there's any conflict whatsoever. We all speak our whatever, and then we all discuss it. So we have good discussions, mature discussions, and we make our decisions.
Good. Our next meeting will actually be an evaluation. We'll do our first self-evaluation as a board. So you might want to start thinking about the kinds of things you want to say as it relates to, is the board demonstrating its role? Are you providing appropriate oversight? Are you demonstrating cordiality amongst one another? All the things that we've talked about before, we need to have an evaluation. And we'll go through that process. I'll ask each of you to fill something out. and then ahead of time. And then when we meet, I'll present to you the results of your self-evaluation. You probably remember this, then that information goes to the president. And she and I have a session that allows her to get the more, without disclosing confidentiality, more information that can be included in your individual meetings, one-on-one with the board president. Okay, you remember that process, correct? So that will occur next time. And you'll get something from me ahead of time so that you can return it to me. We'll all do it online. Now, remember what we've talked about. A governing body's primary responsibilities are what? Mission, vision, oversight, strategic planning, hiring and evaluating performance of the chief executive, and almost everything else, such as overseeing financials, falls in to one of those categories. You have to remind yourself, because it's very easy to slip. Remember what your role is. You are governing body members. You are not management. And it's very easy for you as governance to hear about things that are happening, even when your leadership team makes reports. And you want to jump in and you want to be a part of that. Remember, that is not your role. In fact, we have a client, a case right now we're working with them on, where one of the board members got way too involved in the hiring process. The hiring process of one of their medical directors. In fact, the board member made calls to this individual, doing things like trying to convince them to accept the position. So much that the individual somehow got the impression that if he took the job, that's who he would report to, a member of the board, which is completely inappropriate and not correct. So then when he went through the process and he interviewed, he was not hired. And then he sued the organization for commitments that from a board member that he said weren't followed through on. Now, the case may probably not go anywhere, but what a nuisance and what a bad reason to have to spend money when the board member failed to remember that their job is to oversight. Remember the saying I keep preaching, eyes in, hands out. Your job as a governing body is to monitor and do everything you can to facilitate good performance. And that performance is at the operating level, at the clinical level, meaning how physicians practice, the oversight role you play there. And the last and perhaps sometimes the most important thing you do is to make sure that all of that you oversee is consistent with the organization's mission and values. You're with me? When you as a board allow yourselves individually to get involved in an area that's not your role or responsibility, it disrupts the organization faster than you can imagine. You think you're doing good. Your efforts, your intent is noble, but it really messes the organization up. So you have to be extremely disciplined. Now, give me a summary of some areas as we go through this kind of pre-check. How are things going with your role as it relates to the medical staff? What's happening?
We have a chief of staff that doesn't show up. And
Ever?
never.
Okay.
We have Yeah, he like never shows up. I can probably count on one hand. He has like an assistant usually come in and read the MEC report and what's in the report and the policies they pass. That's all we get.
Okay, so how are we gonna solve that problem?
As we merge, we're getting a chief medical officer that will probably be part of the executive team and at the board meetings.
Do you think, yeah, that's your solution? But remember, let's assume that you had more time on your hands. There are some tricks to the trade that you can use as a board when it comes to getting physician oversight. And one is to set a time specific for the chief of staff to come in and make a 10-minute presentation. The reason physicians don't come to like a board meeting is they're swamped all day long and they're not interested in coming to a board meeting and having to sit there while they wait for their turn and time on the agenda. So some organizations, and you're going to move past this because of the way you're going to be structured via merger. Some organizations have to be very specific. Now, you might also want to do that in the future whenever you have special reports or presentations from the medical staff. Don't just put them on the agenda as a number, like number 9 on the agenda. Your board president, Kate, just read where you can adjust the agenda, but for positions like that, for situations like that, give a time certain portion on your agenda so that physicians can come in, make their presentation, excuse themselves and leave. Make sense? This is where you as a board have to show the kind of discipline that demonstrates respect for your medical staff because of the role they play and how busy they are. And at the same time, get the information that you need. So there's, I hope, a helpful suggestion for you as you think about how you're going to structure physicians making presentations on your board. Now, have you had any new applications to the medical staff that you've approved? Okay, how do you feel about that? How did it go?
I don't know who they are.
Did you ask any questions about qualifications? What role did you play, or did you just rubber stamp what the physician did?
Rubber stamp.
Okay, did you feel comfortable with that?
Well, I feel like CEO, they make the decision, they make the recommendation. It's probably pretty sound, so we need to accept it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's their
Now, is it okay for you as a board to say to whoever's representing the medical staff, especially hopefully would be the chief of staff, tell us a little bit about the individual that we get to know what kind of person it is? That doesn't mean that you expect them to say something like, well, she's married with 3 kids. What you want to know is where they trained, what their residency was like, if they performed, have a fellowship. You want to know what qualifies them to provide patient care to the patients that you ultimately have to make sure get good patient care. Okay? So when you're asking questions about those staff appointments, ask questions that talk about their qualifications, not anything else. So that sounds like it's one of the things that you're going to really have to focus on as you move forward post-merger especially. And the way you're structured is you're going to have a chief medical officer who will make those appointment presentations.
Well, we're in between 2 different process, but the way we do it is how you're explaining it. We have a credentials committee,
Right.
and it goes to that credentials committee. They put a medical staff privileging document that goes to the board, and it includes where they were trained, years of experience, and any potential past litigation that they had,
Right.
so that is transparent. And then it's recommended by their government to the executive committee to the board. So once it gets to the board, It's been seen by many, many people.
Yeah, thank you. I'm jumping past all that process that you're familiar with, right? You know about that. That's why it's so important that if you begin to question the individual qualifications of a position as a lay member of the board of directors, it will be highly disruptive. So you don't ever want to do that. I remember being in a board meeting one time where a board member, physician had a son who went off to medical school and was going to join his father's practice. And when his name came up for credentialing, one of the board members who'd been a member of the community for a long, long time said, well, I've known him since he was a kid, and he was a roughhouse, messed up kid. And didn't want to approve him because he had a checkered adolescence.
You've done.
So you see what I'm saying? You gotta-
Sometimes those are the best ones.
They end up being the best surgeons. So, good. So you're comfortable with your medical staff process, other than you'd like to see the chief of staff more. Okay. And this very conversation is going to get back somehow, and it will probably help. Who knows?
Hasn't yet.
No.
Well, why don't you try? I would try that, just setting a time certain position on your agenda so that they know. And make it early in the agenda, not late. Now, what other oversight responsibilities do you have? What are you overseeing for this organization? Financials, okay? How do you as a board review financials? Go through the process that you travel in your mind when you're looking at financial performance. What is your role? What is your responsibility? What are you looking for?
The profit and loss, see, and noticing how the departments are doing individually. What our profit centers are basically, like what generates revenue for us. What doesn't, and then how we can maybe fix that, or maybe how does that potentially support the profit centers?
Yeah. Your role is to review the information that's presented to you by your management team, by your CEO, and his, in this case, team. Your job is to ask global questions about how the financials are doing as it relates to meeting strategic objectives. So you as a board, let's say that your management team comes and wants to start a new program. They're asking for $1.6 million. They present an overview of what that program is. And they're, forget the pre-process, but we're at the point now where they're recommending approval. What is your mindset as a board when it comes to saying we approve? What are you thinking?
Is it budgeted?
Okay, is it included in a capital budget? Is it included in an operating budget? What do you want to think of before you think of those details?
Well, it has to fit into the strategic plan.
Excellent. Number one, how does this project fit into our overall strategies? Number two, do you have the expertise, which you're going to assume they do, but you're comfortable with the resources that you have to implement this program? Because remember, your responsibility as a board is to basically make sure that management has the resources to do their very best work to complete your strategic objectives. Okay, so if your management team is recommending something, your role is not to question whether or not they can operate it, make it work. Your role is to make sure that it fits the overall strategy that you have approved for this organization's future. You with me? And this is where extreme discipline comes into play. Because once you cross the line and you're getting into the minutia of operations, then everything falls apart. What else do you oversee? Finances, what else?
Policy,
Absolutely. What are some of the policies that you oversee?
board policies, medical staff policies, safety policies,
HR policy?
HR.
Awful. Have you had the experience yet where management will just bring in a book and say, here are all the policies, we're asking for approval?
That's on the 26th.
Okay, and your tendency is to what? What is human nature in that kind of situation? Ooh, get me a copy. I gotta take it home and review the whole thing.
Wait.
No. Your role is to look at your chief executive and say, has this been reviewed appropriately? And are you comfortable that we approve it? Okay? Now, three things happen when you do it like that. Number one, you create high levels of accountability for your management team. Because if you show that kind of trust in them and they ever botch it up and you as a board find out that they weren't transparent with you, it destroys everything, right? So it's an unspoken check and balance for management to always make sure that they are delivering to you the most outstanding, high quality product ever imaginable. Number two, there's something about delegated trust from a good board of directors that creates culture in the organization. Okay. For example, if you're a tight board and you're never open to new ideas, if your management team comes to you and says, we've got a concept that we're working on now, and we expect to bring it to you in 3 months and ask for a significant amount of money, and you constantly are saying, no, 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 because you've got an agenda different than the one you've delegated to your management team, pretty soon management says, I can't try anything creative. I can't do anything new. And then what happens after that? If you want to stymie your chief executive and his or her team's desire to do good things, just affect that kind of decision making and you'll lose them. Most boards, when they self-evaluate, they never ask themselves this question. How often do you turn over CEOs? Because there are some boards who think it's okay to turn a CEO over every 2 years. That is devastating for an organization's long-term future success. You as a board want to be able to say, short of things like retirement, et cetera, that when you hire a CEO and you work with your management team through your CEO, that you keep them forever. Now, why is that so important? Because if the people they hire see that continuity, recruitment and retention is easier. If you as a board are consistent and constant and reliable in your key decision-making, you will recruit better board members when you have to go through succession planning at the governance level. And then likewise, it sets that cultural tone for the whole organization. So whenever I hear about a board losing one of its members, especially if it's not something like I'm moving to Boston or I'm moving to New York, whatever it might be, that's always a warning sign that has to be explored. Now, the other side of this is you as a board have to deal with the fact that you're all aging. And how do you go through the succession strategy? One of our sessions in the future will be specifically on how you as a board go about your succession strategy. And you're a little bit of a disadvantage because your attorney has just told you that you have one individual that has identified themselves as a candidate for board replacement. You want to get to the point where you have 20 individuals in this community who want to be on this board. Because this board is something special, and it's because what you govern, what you oversee is medical care that's superb and the highest quality. So in the back of your mind, start thinking that way. Don't think about this as just, we've got to replace one board member. You think about this as, we want to recruit a board member who's going to be with us for a long time. And you basically don't have real term limits, do you?
No.
So you might die sitting in one of these chairs someday. That's a great thought, isn't it?
No.
Right after you approve the new medical staff. But you get my point, right? Start thinking as a board bigger than the day-to-day in the meeting actions you take. You must begin to think about board succession. So what we'll do is you'll see us go through this process where at our next meeting, we'll do an evaluation. You will get data back that tells you how you think you're doing. You will test that by discussing it openly in that session. And then the next session is where you look at what your strategy is for board succession. Now, it was interesting that your attorney said something like, you could even identify someone and we could appoint them. Self-perpetuating boards, and that's what the category you fall into, are often and most likely the ones that are strongest. Because you know your community. You know what a board member's role and responsibility is. And you can be part of helping to identify and recruit individuals who will operate that way, work that way, and who share the values of the organization. You with me? You can see this. This is the kind of thing that most boards never even talk about. But board succession is your key to the future. So we want to have that in the back of our mind as we work through all of this, okay? What else do you oversee? Finances, policies, operations, results, basically, not day to day, you know what I mean? What is your role from an oversight perspective when it comes to what's happening in the organization? How do you measure, how do you oversee what your CEO tells you? How do you respond to that? How do you know this organization is being operated efficiently?
What about trust in your CEO to know that it's operating? We see all the reports, we see all the profit loss, we see the financial reports, and we get objectives in this well. So I think that's perfect trust again.
You do it by trusting the people who present to you the data. Now, if your CEO comes in and says to you, I want to give you an overview of how we're doing from an employee relations perspective. He has the director of employee relations talk about things. And in that report, as they present to you, they say, our turnover is 12%.
It's not good.
How do you know if that's good or not good?
I don't know, it's based on my experience with operations.
Okay, your experience?
They should have a goal.
Okay,
Yeah, they should.
there should be some kind of performance standard that you're already aware of. But how do you really understand what turnover means for an organization? When you've got nurses on this side that are really hard to find, you've got radiation techs over here that are more, one way harder or easier to recruit. You have to ask your management team. Every single board meeting you have should be you overseeing, but at the same time asking questions that teach you and help you learn how good hospitals work.
And I think also too, you need to know the community needs as far as, you know, conversations with the CEO and the management of the hospital, and also too, living in the community as well. So, and also we know the hardships that we have in recruitment and retention here. So, you know. we have
And you
to
know
kind of
that
look at
because your management team
Right.
telling you that. Now, you have to be careful that when you as a board member are sitting around this table and you're talking about what you know in the community, that you're not sharing what your cousin Larry
Oh, no,
told you in
no.
cocktail party. Okay? You've got to be really careful of that. But at the same time, you as a board member should be mature enough that if you hear enough comments about certain things, here's a good example. One of our hospital partners, they have an on-site ambulatory surgery building. And when you go to that surgery center, the main entrance is always filthy. Trash, leaves, things right at the sliding door. And because I'd attended their board meetings several times in a row, one of the board members said, I heard a comment from a community member that the doorway, the entranceway to our surgery center is always really messy. Now, is it appropriate to say that in a board meeting? Absolutely not. Is that what you as a governing body should be worried about, on how many leaves there are at the sliding door of the surgery center? But if you've heard it 9 times from 9 different people, what do you do?
Mention to our president.
I always go to the CEO.
Yeah, now, your CEO, when you tell him things like that, is he gonna be irritated by that? No. He's gonna say thanks, and then he'll follow up. Now, the interesting thing in this case was, have you ever gone to those buildings where they've been designed and engineered in a strange way, and the minute you walk into that little vestibule where they have the doors, it feels like it's sucking in everything from everywhere around you? That's what was happening. It had been engineered bad. Their maintenance people were going there morning and night. But it was a battle they couldn't win. So you begin to see that it's the little things and how you discipline yourself to handle them that make all the difference in the world. Now, is it the CEO's responsibility to come back to you and say, we've handled that? And does he or she do it in the board meeting, or is it one-on-one with you? It's one-on-one with you.
That should be.
Discipline is the greatest asset of high-performing boards. Discipline. What else do you oversee? Come on, you know this.
Gonna have to. I work on getting the bond set up for the election.
Okay, so you're going to approve the basic terms of the bond, right? Are you going to do any of the background work, the legal work on that?
That's what attorneys are for.
Yeah. You're saying, but remember,
Pointer in that direction.
you as a board, whenever you approve something, you should go through this mental checklist. Number 1, is it consistent with our mission? Number 2, is it consistent with our strategies? Does it fit our strategic direction? Number 3, what do you think number 3 is? Remember Garcia talked about this a few minutes ago? Financially, does it make sense? One of your key strategies will be, if it's not already, to make sure that this organization is financially solvent for the future. So that's number 3. What's number 4? A board should always say to its CEO, do you have the resource support to accomplish your key objectives, each of which fits one of your key strategies? Okay? All right. Now let's stop here for a minute. Questions, thoughts? I'm throwing out a lot of stuff fast.
Just want to make a comment on the turnover. You have county turnover, you have the idea to bring benchmarks in terms of how the organization is doing at the community level, at the state level, and nationally.
Exactly. Now, why is that important? Why is that perspective important for you as board members to see?
Well, if you're basically, if nationally it's 12%, well, then you're right there. So
What if your local turnover, let's say that you have a competing hospital and you happen to know that their turnover is 8%, but yours is 14. Okay, what does that, how do you respond to that as a board?
why?
Yeah.
You simply ask, will you help us understand what the differences are? And your management team brings that in. Have you ever been in an organization where you've done a staff or employee survey? Okay. One of your responsibilities as a board is to affect the kinds of things where you get a feel in general terms about how the workforce feels. Now, most boards will not do a staff survey every year. It'll be once every 2 years or 3 years, and you try to coincide with a natural rate of turnover. But every, let's say, 2 or 3 years, you as a board should see in summary form presented by your management team how the staff feels about things. Now, the same thing applies to the medical staff, but it's almost impossible to get that done. You'll get 15% response. But let's focus on the employees for a minute. Why is it so important for you to hear from your management team about how the staff feels? Why is that so critical?
Well, you need to know the culture of the hospital. Definitely need to see, we need to improve anywhere, but that would be also.
Yeah, so you want to know how they feel and how it impacts employee morale, right? Same reason that management wants to see it,
Right,
although your response to it is different than theirs.
right.
What else? Why else is it important?
See if the staff, your executive team is carrying out the vision, the values the board sets.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good
Excellent.
answer.
What else? Now think about it in terms of strategy and you monitoring good financial performance.
You're not gonna have good financial performance if you have a bad culture.
Say it louder for me.
You're not gonna have a good financial performance if you have a bad culture.
Exactly.
Right.
So you as a board, when you see employee survey results and your management team presents it so you understand what they're saying, you begin to know where you need to put resources. Because every staff survey has questions about pay, benefits, working conditions, workload. How can you as a board be effective long-term if you don't hear from management things like people perceive our workload to be extremely heavy? If you don't know that as a board, you won't be in a position to understand why it's important for you to allocate the resources to keep your wage and salary program competitive. Okay? Every single thing that you as a board, everything you do has to be put in the perspective of, are we making a policy? Are we approving a strategy that our management team can not only implement, but are we giving them the resources to be able to implement it? I liken what a board does to what I had a baseball coach one time, way back in my youth. And he had an athletic director, and the athletic director came to visit with us as a team one time. And I don't remember anything but this statement. He said, "My job as athletic director is to remove barriers so you, coach, can do your best job. That role-to-role comparison is exactly what you do as a governing body. Your responsibility is to remove barriers, provide resources so your management team and your medical staff, your nursing staff, every single member of this organization can do their best work. If you get involved where you're not supposed to be involved, you lose your discipline, you waste time on things that are not central to that purpose, you're not affecting your role as a member of this governing body. I'm doing all the talking. I'm going to stop a minute. Any other questions? Any thoughts? This make sense?
It makes sense, but I'm just kind of thinking about what we've been involved in for the last 5 years, talking about the merge and AB 918 and everything. So these guys over here, this table here, they have a big job when that merge does, happen, because we're merging two different cultures. I think it's going to be challenging.
So put yourself in their shoes for a minute. What do you think they're thinking and their teams are thinking? They're saying, how are we going to bring this all together? And no doubt they're thinking about things that will create excitement or things that will create a new culture focused on the future, not the past. Why do you think some organizations, when they merge, change their name?
It's a new place, new vision.
Place, new vision,
New
new hope.
identity.
New hope.
Okay.
Yeah, everything.
Now, I don't know what your plans are there. You've got all sorts of things probably happening all at one time. But you as a board, what is your role as this merger goes forth?
And do their job.
Right, but you should also, in everything you say, everything you talk about, here and away from here, you should talk about the merger being the start of something absolutely great.
Agree.
You want to be the cheerleaders, the best cheerleaders for this new future. Now, lots of organizations do lots of crazy things. They'll put out a podcast. They'll do Instagrams, and there'll be a picture of the board, and the captions and everything will read, "New beginnings at your organization." And you're already thinking of all this, but you get the idea. What is your role in that? Your role is to say, what resources does management need to catapult us into our new future? It should not be, I think we as a board should have a picture of ourselves and a group picture and put it online and show everybody the new board. No. The minute boards draw attention to themselves, they get criticism they don't deserve. You have to be willing, as a board member, to do your work mostly in quiet, knowing that you'll hardly ever get any recognition, but coming away feeling entirely satisfied because you know that your governance role has given your team the tools they need to be great. That's the satisfaction. Man, I'm doing too much talking. I'm wearing myself out. Questions?
I guess I have a question more relative, and I guess we'll get to that with the succession plan, but it's an election. So I guess we can do what, at this point we're appointing, and it is temporary because this seat will be up for election in November.
Yeah.
And so, we don't have control over that piece of the puzzle, so to speak.
Yeah,
I mean,
you know what?
How
You're
much
exactly right.
control do we get to I mean, it's like, what do we do?
I want you to ask yourself this question now. On the surface, you're exactly right. It doesn't seem, it seems that way entirely. But do you have more control than you think?
Encourage and educate.
Yes.
If you know an individual that you know would be a great board member, and you do your sales job on them, and they say, I'm willing to go through the process for running and get elected, and you have briefed the rest of this board on that process you found good to help, and everyone's comfortable, you will create such groundswell of support in this community that every board member you identify as a successor will get elected. That's the power that you have once you're an incumbent. Have you ever seen, this happens, Oceanside is a good example of the coast, San Diego. Their district hospital is very similar to yours. And every time, and they don't do this anymore, and they've lost a lot of their strength as they don't focus on this kind of thing. But every time a board member was leaving and they were going to have an election for a new board member, there was always a big PR campaign to show a picture of the outgoing board member with the new board member running. And everyone in the community said, well, if Mrs. James is standing next to Mrs. Amaros and she's supporting her, that's the one I want. So you become self-perpetuating by actually designing a system that does exactly what you want. So when you say the election, it's a barrier. But if you put the effort in and the work in that goes with what you've invested as a board member here, you can have influence over that process. And you should say, I want someone to come in after me that will help make this place better than we made it. That makes sense? That's the excellent question. And it's always the elephant in the room. Some people will say, well, we can't tamper with an election process. We can't. Do you think that people who run for elected positions like this haven't been influenced by board members that currently exist? Always. We just don't ever hear about it. How were you recruited?
Mr. Bill, so the scenario you presented was more of an outgoing individual endorsing somebody running, but as sitting board members, they can be very tricky if we get behind a candidate and if they don't win, and then the person who does win may have hard feelings when they're on the board because you backed their opponent, right?
Yeah, and you have to be careful about that because when you have two people running, you as a board have to be very careful that you're not showing favoritism to one or the other. I was talking more like, a single replacement. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you as a board have a succession list of people that you know are good. Did you know that the best performing boards structured like you, before a board member can even register to be on the ballot, before an individual can register to even be considered to be on the ballot, they have to go through an education training program before they can. And it's like 3 days long, 4 hours, 3 days in a row. Guess how many people that weeds out very fast? Because you put in a lot of time. So you have to design the system to support the values that you know.
Can we do that though with, asked to go to account or, district-wide election? Is that something we can do?
Yeah, it's details for your attorney, but some organizations push it right to the session thinking, where you identify individuals that might be interested. Can you think, have you ever been on a board where someone ran and won and everyone on the board didn't like them even before they ran?
Yes.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I see it happen every week. Well, and then they get on the board and they're disrupted. They don't understand their role. They're unwilling to learn and be disciplined. It's a bad thing.
Another way to it's not directly succession planning, but something to keep in mind is officers, right? The election of officers that you do in January of every year. That's a way to sort of control tenor of the board, and then committees, right? Like making sure you're staffing committees with folks that are going to have the ability to come back and make recommendations and be in positions where they're learning some more in-depth information than perhaps you discuss at the board level. You know, those are kind of mechanisms
That's,
to control, like, we don't need this at this board, but to control disruptive or unruly board members, like, don't put them on any committees. You do have, the majority of the board at any given time does have the power.
that's such an excellent point, because I think you're structured where you can put people on your subcommittees who are never elected, haven't been elected, right?
You could, as voting members, yes, you could make committees with non-board members on them. But for the most part, the voting members would be the board.
Yeah.
So keep that control.
My supplemental point to what was just made is that there may be times when you want to identify someone in the community that you think would be really good on a subcommittee, and you test them there to see if, and then they become part of your succession strategy over time.
Yeah, as a like a type A and type B voting members, right? Like
Right.
the type A would be the board members with the voting power, and the type B, like, they get votes, but they're not, you know, you could structure the bylaws of that committee to say, if you have two type A board members, that's all you need to pass a vote. And if they're not present, then you need like double the power of the non-board, you know, like you can figure out voting thresholds. But having an appointed member of the public on a committee elevates that person's access to the organization and maybe to the public, that give them an inside scoop on getting elected next cycle.
Any other thoughts? I've probably thrown too much at you in 50 minutes.
Good, and 50 minutes flew by.
Are you comfortable? Are there any parts of your role as a board member that you're feeling a little uncomfortable with? You're good?
Still just busy learning, you know. I think I'll learn, hopefully I keep learning until I'm not in this chair anymore, you know.
That's what
I hope I don't die in this chair, by the way.
Some of you may remember the gentleman who was the CEO of General Electric. His name was Jack Welch. Jack Welch was a legend. After he left GE and he started to do other things, he kind of messed things up a little bit and kind of ruined his great reputation. But I happened to get to know Jack Welch because I was playing golf one day and there was a twosome and we were a twosome, and we looked at each other and said, "Hey, do you want to join up? We can play as a foursome." And one of the other men in that twosome group was Jack Welch. So I got to know him. He was about 5'9" and had the energy of like 20 puppies. He was just a goer. Before we teed off on the first hole, he said, "We're going to play this round of golf in 2 hours and 50 minutes. And we did. After I got to know him, whenever he was in Southern California, he would give me a call. And I learned later that it was just because he wanted to play golf. But he taught me a lot. And he told me one time, he said, "You look at my board," and his board was stacked with some of the most powerful men and women in America. And he said, and they're all CEOs except for 3. So he's got a 9-person board. 6 of them are CEOs of other big, huge companies. And I said to him, when he was telling me about his board, I said, "It's got to be really hard to keep those CEOs on your board from trying to tell you what to do." And I was only 30 years old at the time, so my maturity level was much different than his when it came to board function. And he looked at me and he said, "Why would that be?" And I said, "For the obvious reasons, Jack." And he said, "Well, the obvious reasons are not real when it comes to serving on my board." And I said, "Explain." And he said, "When you come on my board, you better know what your role is. Because if you step outside your role, you're off my board." And I said, how many times have you had to do that? He said, 3. So it happens at every level. I mean, he had guys on his board like Dick Poole, who was the executive chairman of the Johnson and Johnson Company. And he happened to be on the Scripps board. So knowing both of them, one time Dick told me, he said, if we don't perform our role the way we all know it should be performed, we're doing nothing of value for the organization. So you begin to see that you as a board, it doesn't matter where, General Electric, El Centro, it does not matter. The functions are the same. The responsibilities are the same. There is no difference. You're just in a different location, different revenues, different things. Sometimes situations might be a little more complicated, but tell me this merger isn't complicated. You're going through a big, big deal. In fact, some mergers at big corporate levels might be easier than yours. So your role as members of this board are to constantly remind yourself that what you bring to this governance function requires discipline, requires homework, attendance, making sure you're reliable and disciplined.
How do you put that? Like, I just go straight to, you have to have like board bylaws where it talks about roles, right? Roles and responsibilities of the board. And then, mechanisms. So you have, board members who are out of line. Because, I mean, you see it all the time. I mean, I worked for an elected board and I'd have a board member come to me as a staff member and be like, I need you to do this and this. And I'd be like, okay, And so, but obviously like you look at their bylaws and they do whatever they want. And I really like in this organization, especially when you're dealing with patient care, like as the board, we're not the experts. And so how do you put that and like structure that into your bylaws, so it really is that eyes in, hands out situation.
Yeah, it's hard to do. You can create language that talks about roles and responsibilities, and some organizations will require the board members to actually sign off. They've read it, they understand it, and they'll conform to it, kind of thing. But that's never as powerful as the internal values that drive a board. I'll give you a good example. Let's say that one of you as a board member start acting out. Okay? And we've all seen or been on boards where we've seen a board member who's disruptive, who causes problems. What's the correct way that high performing boards, what's the process they use to address that rogue board member? What do they do?
I've seen them censor them.
That's, you can take that action, but what happens long before that?
Pull them aside,
Or a conversation.
Have to have a
pull them
conversation.
aside and talk.
Excellent, who pulls them aside?
Board chair.
Right, board president, board chair. Now, that means that if she were to do that, she would have to know exactly that she had the rest of your support. So all the communication that goes on before she would do that has to happen one-on-one with each of you to make sure you're all entirely together.
But beware of serial meetings.
And
Right.
with the Brown Act, we can do that.
So what can you do? One-on-one, right?
Yeah, but that's.
But serial meeting.
Have your
like,
lawyer
you
make a
can't
call.
have- Yeah,
You
can't have
you all
all
know
of-
the rules, right? You all know the rules, right?
And say, how do we do all this and still stay Brown Act compliant? Because,
Right.
yeah, we can't,
Is it?
under the
Yeah.
Brown Act,
With
you
Adrian
can't
and
do
the doc.
that.
You do Brown Act buddies.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you have to follow the rules, but you know how communication happens. Now, when you go through that process, you have to be sure that you're all together. So your president, your chair is never operating alone. And then what happens in those one-on-one sessions is she can, with complete trust and backside support, say exactly what needs to be done in terms of changed behavior so that that board member is no longer disrupted. Okay? And you do it in the spirit of, we want you to be a good board member. This is causing disruption and some concern. Now, if you do your board evaluation, and council, make sure that I'm saying this right. When you do a board, your own self-evaluation, the process for feeding back information through the board president with each of you one-on-one is not a violation of the Brown Act.
Correct.
So why do you think it's so important to do your own self-evaluation every year? Because every single one of you has a chance to say what you think one-on-one with your leader. And she, in this case, then takes that information and contours it to do what needs to be done. And that another key reason why that's so important is that you and you and you and you and you and you someday are going to be in that chair. And you want to be in a position where you know how it works. Now, some of you are going, not me, and you may never ever, but you know what I mean. You know conceptually what I'm talking.
And I'm like, next year, somebody else will be in this spot.
Just keep giving it back.
Yeah, remember, when it comes to individual board member discipline, if it ever gets to that point, we got to go back and start at square zero, because that's where board succession and how you identify self-perpetuation works. I always like to say that if you get a rogue board member, it's because you didn't do enough pre-work.
What do you think about, so like on the board, we have officers and about, to be president or vice president, putting like you've had to sit on the board for 2 years, so that way you can't get somebody that's
Right.
brand new, rogue, maybe has the support of 4, is counting to 4 and then disrupts
Personal
it.
agendas, all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
The best way to handle that is by writing into your bylaws exactly what those kinds of things are, what you want them to be. And then you want a succession internally that helps you create stability. So you have a president-elect, a president, and a past president. And let's say, I'm just making this up, but let's say each term is 3 years. A person who comes on as president-elect has 3 years before they become president. And then 3 years as president and 6 years of experience to offer the new president and the new president-elect when they're serving as past president. You want continuity over a longest period of time as you can. Now, that takes more time because that means that you've got 3 people attending key meetings all the time instead of just 1 or 2. But the best performing boards, that's the way they work. They do not neglect to think about what it takes, the time it takes for someone to observe and watch to become the board president or chair. And they value the experience so much that they want them in the past chair position so they can offer counsel and advice. Makes sense. I've gone over my time. One last question, anything? Management team, am I on track?
What would you say are the, if you can say one, what was a one word of wisdom, or what was the greatest lesson Jack Welch taught you, basically? What was the
Discipline.
Yeah.
It's not just at the board level, it's at the management level. The reason boards fail is because they don't recognize that the discipline that comes from being personally disciplined contributes to the discipline that an entire group of people have. And every time you show personal discipline, you create the environment for greater levels of trust and respect. CEOs on the management side in healthcare, any industry, CEOs don't fail because they don't know how to strategic plan, they don't know how to operate, they don't have financial acumen. The reason they fail, and you'll know this from your own personal lives, the reason CEOs fail is because eventually the organization gets sick and tired of it. Why do they get sick and tired of them? Because they dominate conversations. They don't show up for meetings on time. They cancel meetings with their executive team members. All of us in this room had a boss where the meeting is Tuesday at 10 and they cancel it Tuesday at 9. Or the meeting's at 10 and they don't show up until 10:30. I was in a board meeting not too long ago. They asked me to come and said, we need help. We're going to terminate our CEO. So I got to the meeting and I said, all right, tell me why. And it's a 9-member board. And I looked at all of them, not one of them would speak up. And then finally, the vice chair spoke up and said, he makes us all sick. And I said, why? He said, he interrupts our conversations. In board meetings, he overtalks. He never delegates to his key staff members. It was all about behavior. One board member said, he's the smartest financial guy I've ever been around. But I can't stand it. Because it was the relationships that he didn't work on. Parents are the same way. You have to have, as board members, you have to have a kind of relationship with each other and as a team where you respect your leadership. You're constantly looking for ways to say what you want to say in a diplomatic and correct way. And you don't harbor resentment when you screw up. Because you're all going to screw up at some point. Every one of you is going to vote against or for something that works or doesn't work. But good boards do their homework and there's such a high level of trust in their management team that everyone comes away from decisions as one body, as one committed group. And when you're like that, your chances of failure go down and down and down and down, and it's practically zero. You're really getting me excited. Can you believe someone loves this stuff as much as I do? I'm a sick man, I know it.
I just have to tell you, I did buy the book Fish Rots from the Head. And I started reading it, but it's pretty heavy reading.
It is.
I can do about 4 or 5 pages and I gotta stop.
You're like that Nate Bargatze comedian guy who says, oh, books, they've got a lot of words. That's Fish Rots from the Head. There's another great book if you want to read it. It's called, just gonna tell you, I forgot it. It's not coming to me. Age.
You can text it later.
But again, and if any of you have questions, call me. You've got my text me, email me. I'm glad to respond. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be with you. So remember, for our next meeting, about 10 days or so before that meeting, you'll get something from me via email, and it will ask you to complete our first board self-evaluation. You complete that and just scan it and email it back to me. We'll make it easy. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sure.
Please, Mr. Bill, help yourself to any food and
Thank you.
Thanks, into the breaks.
I wish we had coffee
Yeah.
at the class.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
Oops.
Public comments, or do we want to go back to item 5?
I think we can go back to item 5, because we have Mr. Cordova, I believe, is here. Hi. Hi, Mr. Cordova. I communicated to the board earlier today that you submitted your letter of interest to fill the vacancy. So I didn't have a chance to circulate it through the board yet because I got it too late to print it out or to circulate it before I got to the board meeting. But if you'd like to give any sort of statement or talk about, your interest in filling the vacant position, I think the board, the board is gonna probably bring this back to the February 26th board meeting for discussion and appointment. This is a great opportunity for the board to ask questions if you have any, or if you want to wait and ask Mr. Cordova to return on the 26th, so you can ask some questions then, you can do that. It's really at your discretion, but I want to thank you for coming and invite you to give, if you'd like, a 2 or 3 minute introduction into who you are.
If I can, for a moment. I submitted a letter of interest, it has my resume, and I'm sure you're all gonna read it. But I want to express the primary reason for me wanting this for here. I was very close to my mother, extremely close to my mother. Every day after work, no matter what time I call her up and wait home. And we have these often very odd conversations about me not ever calling her, or me not going by, or me not eating her food, or she had great food for lunch and stuff. You miss that. And the reason I'm telling you this is because my mother had some medical issues, and they weren't able to be addressed here in Federal County. We were constantly taking her to San Diego, LA, Palm Springs, other places. And one of the things I always thought about was, hey, how can I get back to the community? Now, I guess I was a public servant for many, many years, 25 years. And I thought, well, I gave my time to the community, I did what I could, do like County Imperial. And I always thought that was enough. But then I learned about this, I thought about it, and although I will tell you that I'm extremely busy, this is something that I would put time aside for. You guys were speaking earlier about coming in, you're saying Mr. Fields, I believe his name was, his name is, but being prepared. I think one of the things about being on a board like this and any board, quite frankly, is reading everything, being prepared, showing up, and giving what you can. We all have different experiences, we all come from different backgrounds. And I think all of our backgrounds, about this board, we put it together, make something out of it. We all walk in a different place, and it's important where we walk in from. I worked for a board for 20 too many years. Okay, I learned a lot from them. I had a wonderful board. It's not so wonderful board. I will tell you, I had a board that had 3 guys that had master's degrees or higher. And they were all involved with wars themselves. And that was the easiest time of my life as somebody who worked directly for a board, because they understood what a board needed to do. I learned a great deal from each other. I feel like I could bring that experience that I had for a board to this board. And primarily, like I said, it's because I want to get back, and I want to get back to what I feel Imperial County really needs. I want to tell you a quick story. 20 years ago, I was CEO of the county. Man, was that long? My God. Now, it was about 15 years ago. I was approached by a couple of doctors. Doctors over here, doctors out were primarily in Raleigh. And they sat down, they took me to lunch, worst lunch I ever had. But they didn't eat. It was funny, but we all sat down and they had little tiny meals, and I had the biggest, but I couldn't eat my meal. But they expressed their desire to do what you guys are doing here today. Exactly what you guys are doing here today, exactly what the legislation called for. I got together, we sat down several more times, really good guys, turned out to be extremely bright, very conscientious about what they wanted to do. And, you know, we took the idea of having a regional hospital, if you will, and two others. And it was fierce opposition, and why I never knew. And I'll tell you how far we went. We decided, you know what? It would be great to have a hospital near IVC. Why IVC? Well, because Crawley could get there, Calexico could get there, Girl could get there, El Central could get there, all in about the same amount of time. And isn't that the case? You got to provide service to the entire community. And our community just isn't El Central, Calexico, just isn't Raleigh, just isn't Sealy, just isn't, you know, it's the entire Girl Valley. For the most part, let's face it, Salton's a little bit too far, but generally around here, that's where we're at. I was beyond disappointed with the reaction from the doctors that I spoke to. Some of the doctors that were my doctors. The pushback was insane. So at that point, we said, okay, well, we tried. And I should have never stopped. But I did. I had a lot of other things going on. You just kind of backed away. Never talked about it again. See him every once in a while, you know. And had dinner with him, you know, a few years ago about it. But it just stopped. And I see this as a way to continue that. I see this as a way to give the community what it really, really needs. And you know what? We deserve it. Bureau County deserves this kind of movement, this kind of effort into getting quality health care in Bureau County. So reason why we shouldn't have it. I came into the hospital about 7 weeks ago. I was in the emergency room. I was in the emergency room overnight. The entire night. You know that I was never offered one drink of water? You know that I was never offered one thing to eat? You know that I had to get up 3 or 4 times to go ask somebody, when is the doctor coming to see me again? I was livid. I was getting up the next morning to leave because I fell asleep, hadn't eaten since 7 o'clock the night before, 6 o'clock the night before. 4 o'clock in the morning, I had a drink of water and done anything, and I was upset. My wife had to contain me. I don't get very upset. She was like, just take it easy. Let's go now. So I'm asking them, I want to check out. Can I leave? Oh, we'll be right with you, sir. And finally, I said, you know, I'm speak with somebody. The attending doctor came in and said, what's up? I gave him my story. And he's just like, I'm really, really sorry. I don't know what happened. Can I have a chart on here or something like that? I said, well, we don't have charts anymore. We have a computer, you know, a little bit, but it's like a chart. So yeah, so go look at it. Don't they have to say when they came in to see me? Don't they have to put in the notes when they took my vitals? Because they took your bloods and walked in and triage. That's happening, you know. On time to get involved. Really is. And so that's what I mean. And I think I know that I'll put the time and the effort to be prepared to come to these meetings, give my input. And this gentleman, Dr. Bills, you know, listening to him thinking, damn, why didn't I have with my board? I would have my seriously. He said a lot of good things in a little bit of time that I was here. I apologize for being late today. I had a meeting scheduled till 6, so I could make it earlier. But honestly, I feel like this is something that short of a calling for me. I really want to do it. I understand if you guys want to put that, because I'm going to work. I look from, and part of me on this board because I meet in the road here. That's the target. And I'll, any questions you need to ask them. So when, kind of an open book, really, about how I feel about hospital care. Oh, my wife up on the middle here city, no, just go, no way, that's really, because she's been expecting it. She's been wanting it from me because of my experience, and especially with my experience with my mom. Now, I still remember driving home at night going, oh, man, no longer with us, and I had a phone. So we would take her to appointments. On Southern California. But not here. Why not? Any questions?
I'm just curious, is he in, what district is he in?
You know, I don't know. Do you happen to know what district you live in? I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the IVHD. I'm going to pull it up right now on our map.
I think my district.
Okay.
I live up at Frost and you probably through way out there.
Right.
Yeah.
So I also wanted.
It's not available, it's not available. Right, but that's fine, but.
No, the appointment is available to anyone who lives in the jurisdiction of the district, which is the entire county, as long as you're a registered voter of the county. The only other hiccup is, so the reason that this seat is vacant is because the gentleman who was appointed this seat had to withdraw from the board because of a work issue. And I was informed tonight that that board member is available, reappointed essentially to the board. So I think there's maybe a question to the board about whether you're interested in reappointing Director Proctor, Mr. Cordova, sitting more candidates. I know that the discussion with Mr. Proctor, you have an ability to discuss with him, and if you want to chat with him about circumstance, also have opportunity if you want to give Mr. Cordova a call one-on-one to chat. But I think Mr. Proctor's situation will be more certain in terms of his availability within the next week. So we can come back to the board meeting on the 26th, put an agenda item on that agenda for discussion and appointment with the swearing in immediately afterwards, just like we had for today. And you can make the call on the 26th if you, once you have more information. You also are welcome to ask.
This one make my recall. You know, I don't know how important continuity. And honestly, if you guys decide this project's very, right, no hard feelings, work together in the future, people that will be running the board like I said. But is the balance number that effect or not, but nonetheless, you know, I understand. You know, I'm sure he's here for the same reason I am. Do what is best for county out there.
And it would be, just so your words, it'd be a scenario where if that was the case, this one that we're doing right now goes off in November, I guess technically next year, but then it's going to be where you live, because that position that you're would take this spot for right now ends this year, but then where you live, that position's not open for another 2 years beyond that. So then you'd have like a small time with them and then a 2-year gap before I think, just so that you're aware. So you know how that would work.
But it's also, you know, as the board continues, there are committees. And one of the committees is like is an outreach committee, and other committees that have been formed in terms of well, and that's actually on the agenda for today, is to discuss committees, although I think that item should probably be tabled until after an appointment is made. Is how to shuffle folks onto committees. And that's something I know the board is interested in, soliciting members of the public to join committees and give input. So.
I'd just like to say thanks for coming. You've worked with my sister. She's always said good things about you.
Oh, no, we were that.
So I feel like I think we need to give Mr. Proctor the opportunity. And I think he would be an excellent replacement if Mr. Proctor decides to decline, in my
Fair
opinion.
enough. Fair enough.
Any other questions for Mr. Cordova?
I'd just like to say thank you for stepping forward,
Thank
and really appreciate it. An individual of your caliber, coming forward, I think you'd be fantastic for our community and for our board as well. So, I think you're an A player, and, I want to thank you for answering that call.
Thank you. And if Brock doesn't work out, if he does work out, I'm still available for members.
Yeah.
For any kind of,
A committee, I think.
committee that you may have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
We definitely have lots of public engaged committees. That
Especially over the next 4 months, 5 months.
As we-
Yeah.
Going to be very busy.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
a
Way to get money.
bond measure that they have to go on the ballot. So we definitely need community engagement on that, and then any other opportunities. We can make sure that you're aware. But we'll let you. Yeah,
Yeah, well, definitely, yeah, and I think it's probably safe to say if you can, I'll let you know one way or another, but maybe keep the evening of the 26th available if you can, but I'll let you know before then if there's, if I know with certainty about, for example, Mr. Proctor's availability. But I'll definitely be in touch. I have your email.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for the opportunity. That's really appreciate it. Ladies are faces, chat, you guys have been wonderful for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
perfect. Agenda item. Public comment.
Public comment.
Neil, if not, do we have anybody for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to board comments. Do we have a direct or brief reports by directors on meetings and events attended? Do we have any reports?
I went to the auxiliary women's meeting yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. And they're planning a country kitchen for the April, in April, and they're also doing a shopping night at Stockman's. So they're continuing with all their fundraisers so they can buy goodies for us. So thank you.
So I was on a panel last Friday at Scripps La Jolla for the American College of Healthcare Executives, their San Diego branch. The panel I was on had somebody from Rady's Children's Hospital who just kind of went through their merger, but is very much so like their federal level. And then we had somebody from UCSD kind of talk about the state level. And then, they wanted like a board member's perspective, talk about the local level. So it was really good. I got to share horror stories with the person for the merge that just went through the merger with Rady's Children and the Children's Hospital in Orange County. And she continuously reminded me that we're not doing so bad on closing escrow. And pointed, yeah, so, but yeah, other than that, I have nothing to report. Right. Nobody has anything else. We can go to. I don't think we have any scheduler events, so we'll go to report by merger strategic planning ad hoc. Adriana, take that one.
Sure, we don't have a significant update. We're still aiming towards a potential March 6th closing date. Only gating item is bondholder consent. So we're working on that, having weekly meetings with the bondholders to see how we can push that forward. So still very hopeful that it will move forward expeditiously.
Husband's birthday.
Happy birthday. That would be great.
And I know,
I will.
great birthday present.
We'll have to celebrate the seventh.
That's exactly.
Finance committee update.
No finance committee at this time. We'll be meeting later this month.
Perfect. All right, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Do you have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Eric Lyon and a second by Goodsell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And motion carries. Move on to item 12A, medical staff report.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, one second. First of all, thank you so much for allowing me to join remotely. So the medical executive committee met in January 21st, 2026, and the medical executive committee, upon the recommendation of the credential committee and the respective clinical services and or chiefs, and based on the complete credential files, policies and procedure, recommended that the medical staff membership and or clinical privileges be granted as below. There was a recommendation for initial application to the professional staff effective March 1st, 2026, and there was a recommendation for reappointment for medical staff effective March 1st, 2026, and there was a recommend acceptance of resignation effective for January 31st, 2026, and recommendation for release of proctoring effective February 1st, 2026. The committee recommends the acceptance of policies and procedures which were approved by the MEC, and the joint medical staff bylaws were approved in the meeting by both facilities, and would like to ask your board to please approve that. Mr. Borenberg stated that we continue to work toward the merge on the 24th of January, which is changed. We are also working with the Cerner to merge the medical record for both facilities into one. Mr. Velez reported that we are working on the seismic compliance and noted that the path of travel may require changes during the construction. Financial report was presented, indicated that PMH has a good month in December, was showing a positive of 3.9 million over the first 6 months of year. Expenses were lower, but the legal fees were higher during the process. The transfer report also was discussed and reported that we are working on the transition from the DMV to Joint Committee for accreditation. Clinical services and committee were reported, and the final recommendation that the Imperial Valley Healthcare District Board of Directors approves each of the recommendation of the Medical Executive Committee for medical staff membership and clinical privileges as outlined, policies and procedures as noted, and authorize the Chief Executive Officer to sign any documents to implement the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do you have a motion to, or any questions? Or a motion to approve?
I so move.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Burker and a second by Goodsell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
Just had a quick question, if I could. On number 12, hospitalist, Dr. Pap, is that meant to be Dr. Rath?
No, Dr. Pat.
We have Pat and Rat.
Yeah.
All right.
He's a hospital.
Thank you.
The hospitals.
Okay.
And then we'll go on to item B, the
Thank you so much.
action.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you. Staff recommends action to authorize IVHD medical staff bylaws.
Any discussions?
These were the bylaws that were worked with the medical staff both here, and they had a subcommittee of both medical staff. And they had legal counsel. I think they did a fantastic job combining the two bylaws in a really short time frame. So kudos to them.
Yeah. Do I have a motion?
I
I
so
so
moved.
I have a motion by Goodsell and a second by Burker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Move on to item C. Staff recommends action to authorize The proposals from Johnson Controls Inc. for replacement of the service compressor and maintenance of starter coolant loops for chiller number 2. Mr. Beyond.
So I don't know if you guys remember this last year, we talked about that. We did chiller number 1 last year. The year before that, we did chiller number 3. This was because we found a group that was able to rebuild the compressors for us instead of buying a brand new machine, or brand new chiller. A brand new chiller is a little over $1 million all in. And so by doing it this way, as you can see, it saves us quite a bit. It is a little bit more than it was last year, inflation, but this is the final one. And this one in particular is also important because this particular chiller number 2 is the one that's on the emergency backup as well. So it was the one that was doing best, and that's why it's the last one on the list. But this is the last one we need to get the chillers on.
Is this the company that provided the service last year?
Yes.
Everything is working well.
Yeah, last year was much better than any of the prior years that we had, because like usually we might have one that works and it was usually chiller number 2. And so last year we had 1 going and we had 3 that was going. And so we did a much better job controlling temperature. And the team this year in particular, with bringing Sean in, did a phenomenal job with looking out for like some of the different issues we have with our cooling, even for our campus here at East RMC, to be able to put some things in place that will actually control it even better and make sure that the water reaches where it's supposed to, at the temperature that it's supposed to be, because we've had a lot of issues with how we've done that in the past and how it's controlled. And so there's some things that we're going to be able to do even this year that's going to help us with that process on top of what's done. And that's because Sean has brought that to us and made us aware of it and is going to put those in motion. So.
Any no motion?
I move.
Second. Thank you.
I have a motion by Irigoyen and a second by Garcia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. Good. Item D, review and discussion Imperial Valley Healthcare District Executive Summary.
So this one is, we've talked to you guys about before, from Oracle Cerner. This is what they came back with to show for the combination. So the biggest takeaways on that front page, you can see that they did what we asked them to do. We wanted them to have a combination of our the contract expiration dates. So they did do that. Would put it in between what El Centro and what Ollie had, and would make our termination date on this particular one 12/31/2032, which is kind of right in the middle there. They were able to take off about 1.9 million of the cost to do the implementation. So it's estimated to be about $4 million on that. As you can see, they're requesting, and this is subject to change as well. We talked to them a little bit about that also, but right now the way that it's written, 25% upfront, and then the other 75% will be added in to what we pay on an annual basis through the duration of the rest through 2032. Furthermore on that, it does talk about, it gives you guys an understanding of what the new technologies that we'll actually be bringing into it. They added several things for us. First thing they did is they took what we have at El Centro and said, you have this at El Centro, but you don't have it at Raleigh, so we're going to make that part of it. And then the other side of it was the things that we have at Raleigh that we don't have at El Centro, and so they added those things into that as well. And then they also added some of their new upcoming services as well into this new build that we're putting together. So it did save us from that standpoint. That does show you like the things that they're not charging us for, and also the annual expense on that. They're estimating that about $750,000. We did ask for a breakdown on that. We haven't received that yet. We wanted to see, there are features that we have at both locations that we only need one of. And so we should have some savings there. And we wanted to see how they broke that down and where they were adding things in and where they were taking things out, and not just give us this grouped number. And so we're waiting to get that back from them to see what that actual breakdown is. Pablo and I both agree there's still a lot of work that needs to be done with this. They just prepared it, got it to us. We had a conversation with them about a little before last, or the week before last, and wanted to make sure that we brought this to you guys just so that you could see what we were working with and what it looks like at this point in time. But know that we're still working on bringing those numbers down. We're still working on, there are a few other things that we want to get added in there that we don't currently have. And so we want to say, hey, throw this in there as well, to see what we can do from that perspective. But this is kind of where we're at. When we do come back with something that we're comfortable with and that we have a final on, that will come to you guys as a final approval, but it's going to be based off of the information that you have right here.
The working session. I guess I am hearing as you're speaking that they seem to be willing to work with us to try and get us a good deal for what it is that we need. Am I reading that between the lines correctly?
That's what they're telling us. Yes.
That you're watching them like a hawk.
Yeah, well, so when Pablo and I first sat down with them earlier, or at the end of last year, towards the end of last year, before they made a presentation to the entire team, one of the things that we talked to them about was the fact that we're paying this, like they want us to pay that money. And we explained to them, like back in the beginning of all this, they knew that this was the end result. We talked to them about it. I sat down with them individually. Pablo sat down with them individually. We both told them the same thing, like this is going to be the end result, and it's going to happen in short order from the time that we both are going forward with this. And, you know, they said, yep, we understand. We take that into consideration. And then they come back and slap us with like $6.5 million. And we're like, hold on a second, that like, if you guys had listened to us from the beginning, this wouldn't have happened. It feels like a money grab. And we straight up told them that it feels like a money grab. Because this is not fair for us in this scenario. When we told you this was the end result, this is what we were going for. And so that's when they came back with some of this first stuff. And initially too, they also were saying, nope, we're going to go ahead and like the Pioneers contract was the 10-year contract. The El Centro contract was a 7-year contract. And they said, no, we're just gonna lump it onto the Pioneers contract. And we're like, no, you're not. We're not gonna add time to it because there's less time on that one. And so that we got them to make some movement on a lot of different things, and add some features in as well. But yeah, there's still more work for us to do on this, but this gives you the general scope of what they're offering at this point in time and where they sit currently. And this is the first time they've actually provided us with the actual numbers for this and what's included in that. And so we haven't had a chance to go back necessarily with them to say, hey, we need to make some changes here. The other piece that's important on this is all for your guys' information. It is going to be about 12 months. What they told us initially, we were told 8, then it was 12. When we do finally have something put together that will come to you guys for approval, once you guys approve it and we sign it, we're still going to be about 30 to 45 days out if everything goes well before we even initiate the process. So let's just say we did work something out and we brought something back on the 26th. We're looking probably another 30 to 45 days out before they can get the resources together to start this process. And then it'll be about 12 months from that time frame. So that kind of gives you and this is obviously a very big piece of what we're doing, and how this can all work together, because right now, if we have somebody, for example, that is working on our campus here at El Centro, we have a need and Pioneers, and they're like, yeah, I'll go over there and work. Now they're going to have a separate sign-on to do that medical record, and it's going to be a little bit different. And so that's why we were trying to bring all of these together. So there's some things from that perspective that that this will help with obviously, as well. And the other piece of that is, right now, if a patient presents and let's say that they went to the ER in Brawley and then comes to the ER here in El Centro, that doctor, if they don't pull the data from the exchange or doesn't come over, we'll have to have another sign on to pull over and say, well, what happened over there? And so functionality wise, when this is all said and done, they can sign on and they'll have all that information. It doesn't matter where campus they go to. So there's a lot of functionality that will gain by having those things come together. And it'll also speed up the process for patients receiving care and things like that. So that's why this is a big deal. And that's also why we want to make sure that we get it right, that we have everything that we need.
Thank you.
So just so I understand, so the proposal here is the 4 million on top of what we're already have paid them, right? This is so our systems can basically work
Yep.
together and put it all together.
Consolidate.
How much have we already paid them initially?
Yeah, a
A
lot.
lot,
It's a lot.
a lot.
Yeah.
About $7 million. Started
On the Alfresco side?
a long time ago.
But I
and
think that
We
total-
started, it stopped, we started it again, and similar, that same way it happened at the PMH. So
But your
So
contract,
they have, just to kind of, so you understand, the 6 point something million that they originally quoted us is about the equivalent from the number of hours, because that's how they do it. They base off the number of hours that it will take, and then they have their dollar amounts for each of those pieces, right? So the number of hours that they quote for what we're asking them to do to bring the two together is about the equivalent of about 0.75 of an implementation. So, add another 25% on that number, we've already both paid that. Or in some cases, we paid portions of that, but they did the exact same thing that they did here, where they said, we'll put that onto what you pay on an annual basis. So you didn't have to pay that upfront and stretching out that, 5 million of it over X amount of time frame.
right? So are we still making those annual payments?
Oh, yes, yes.
And those will still continue to live. And then this is another overlay on top of that.
Well, this 750K is the consolidated amount for us. So what we pay at
The monthly payment that we'll be making to them,
Correct.
plus the,
And that's included in there. Like, yeah, if we do it the way it's set right now, they'll want $1 million from us, and then the other 3 will be spread out in part of this number.
In that
of
one payment.
750.
into one payment. But El Centro's paying, Pioneers is paying, and then what we're.
Yes,
The
this
remainder
will
of
be
the
one payment for IVH,
3/4 that still remains, that'll all be one.
one payment. Yeah, yep.
Just for me, so basically you'll still have the two systems running, and then by April of 27, it'll be consolidated. Is that the idea?
That's essentially, April will be nice, yes.
We're correct. 45 days and
Yes.
then you're theoretical.
We know how they run, so.
Yeah, it'll probably be like a,
But did you give them a timeline? Or did they give you a timeline?
On,
Just completing the project?
Well, when we first talked to them, it was 18 months. So they went from 18 months to 12 months.
is there any way like to
I
go to
think
them and
the-
say, okay, we'll accept that? Is there any way to go to them and say, okay, we'll accept the 12 months, but if you're any month past 12 months, there's a discount?
we can look at that there. And of course, this is them telling us a little bit about what we want. They give us that 12-month, but they are telling us that they think they can do it sooner than that. And the 4 million that we have in there is at that 12-month mark. And that's why it's technically, like, as you can see, the way that they had said that on there is it's an estimated amount, because again, it's based off the hours that are allocated and spent onto that. So there are probably some stuff we can do. We actually talked about that where we cap it and say, Dave in our meeting talked a lot to them about that as well, saying, look, this is what you're saying. Like, we don't want an estimate. We need to know what it's going to be. And we want to hold you guys to that. in that timeframe. So that is something we've already kind of thrown in that direction, that we have a cap on that.
I mean, just like change orders, I mean, is there like a set price through on that or? is it-
It's a little bit different on this one because it's a software build. So we don't really like anything on that would be, I would see if something that Oracle, it's like, oh, this just became available, we can add that onto it. You guys just have to pay X amount more. That would be something, and then we would bring that back to the board if that was the case. But we're trying to get them to throw everything in right now, even a lot of the stuff that we don't have with some of the AI agents and some of those things that will be very advantageous for us in the future. That's part of what is in here at this point. And again, it's also taking it so that what we have at one location, we have at the other. So everything is pretty much the same across the board. For our staff and for patients, the experience should be the same from one location to the next.
Patty had her hand raised. For part of it.
Betty, you had a comment or a question?
You're muted, Patty. You're still muted, Patty. I think if you muted her, she doesn't have the ability to unmute herself. does she?
Right.
There you go.
No.
You're still muted, Patty. I don't know.
Hey,
How about now?
there you go.
There you go.
Phew. I said,
We can
I
hear
think,
you.
I think Pablo and Chris have done a good job, you know, trying to wrangle this. In my view, there's been a lot of underperformance on the part of Cerner, and they knew putting both instances in place at the same time, that this was going to be the end result. So what I'm wondering is, I think Pablo and Chris should continue to try to, you know, do the negotiation as much as they're doing right now. There are potential opportunities in some of this rural transformation funding that's really specific to IT, networking, those kinds of components. And I think simultaneous to this, before we make, you know, sign the dotted line, we should look to see and be working whether or not there's some additional dollars we can get in, whether it's with Cerner or HIEs or other technological opportunities through this fund, which we may or may not get. But I think we'll know relatively quickly about the opportunities there to see if that, you know, can enhance what we're talking about here. I'm, you know, it's, yeah, I'll just leave it at that in this session.
Thank you. This is just a discussion, right?
Yeah, we just wanted to make you guys aware of it so you knew what was coming and kind of, because we've talked about it for a while. We wanted you to see what they came back with so you could see what we're working with.
Well, and I like the idea of going back to them and say, you know, we had a discussion with the board and they want less time to get the engineers to put together the best practice for both systems into one,
Right.
and also the costs associated with it.
But I really like that cap idea.
That's the,
My thing, like with this, I just
They
get
don't get
so
paid. Yeah.
pissed when I think about it, because this could have all been avoided, and Oracle knew, like, they knew that these hospitals were gonna merge. They
Yep,
knew
they did.
that there's legislation, they knew, and then they played the system, right? They're like, oh, we're gonna do it where they can't set up together, you know, and now they still got their hand out. I mean, it's sickening to watch a big corporate company do that, especially the two distressed hospitals. I'm just so disappointed in the
I'd feel
Previous
better if our rev cycle
Sentinel
numbers,
board.
How's that?
Sentinel-
I'd feel better if some of our rev cycle numbers were, you know, where they were before we went live. You know, they're still just underperformance in the system. And so here they are,
Yeah.
you know, getting another big deal.
because they're the sole provider and, you know, we have, you know, our days in AR are not where we want them to be. They're nowhere close to where they were before we went live on Cerner, and they haven't helped fix that. Well, I might be overstating it. Paulo can speak to it better than me. I find it frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even at PMH, I mean, I'm not familiar with ECRMC, but PMH, it definitely hasn't worked how it's supposed to. It's
Right.
done okay, but it's not like it's this phenomenal customer service and service where, you know, like, yeah, let's give you more money.
Well,
Like dollars. to
There
get
is this
this-
bad faith conversation.
We
that
have
here with
expressed
it.
our disappointment with some of the functionalities.
Yeah,
And how, the lack of urgency where, some of their engineers, caused some detrimental, operations to our, so they're very aware of that.
yeah. I mean, personally, like, I have a hard time giving this company who's doing a crappy job, is giving us a crappy system, and they just want more money.
Yeah, we've had, like, that's part of our conversation with them as well, like when we initially even started the first conversations. The part that I have a hard time with, and, you know, is it's already built. Right? It already exists, the build is already there, and they want to redo that. And I'm like, this is Oracle, like, I can do this in Excel. I can copy paste, and I can do, you know, even formulas and all that kind of stuff, but for whatever reason, they're telling us that, yeah, it's not that simple. You can't just take the programming, even though we're actually in the same domain on top of that, which should make this whole process that much easier. It's not. They're telling us they have to rebuild the whole thing into the Pioneer build. And so there's a lot of things that, you know, we definitely don't agree with, and we think that the process should go much faster than it is. On top of everything else, and that they should be able to make this work the way that it's supposed to.
Chris, what's their response when you mentioned to them that you knew that we were gonna merge eventually? Why wasn't El Centro already designed in the Pioneers build so that they could do this?
They tell us, well, it wasn't that simple. And that's, I mean, that's a simpler.
There's two different contracts
Yeah,
and.
But they knew we were coming together.
yeah,
You know, they should have created two different entities ready to tie together.
Remember
give it
that
time.
these contracts were signed. Like
before we were.
Before
7 years before this was implemented. And so.
Oh, so you
They were-
explained to them we're merging, but they had already begun before.
To some extent, yeah, but even to that point though, like that was the whole idea, like was as we were going live in Brawley, knowing that El Centro was right behind us, like those were conversations that we had. And to the point that I was like, look, if this doesn't play out right, like we may have an opportunity here where we say, look, you're gonna lose both of us, and we can do it because of how this merger plays out, because of how this stuff is working. Like, you guys need to make sure that this plays out the way that it should, so that we can make this very seamless when that time comes. And they did say at that point in time, like when they talked to them, that, yeah, no, we totally understand. It was Brad, who's like our main rep guy. And even from that, Greg, who's his boss, similar conversation that I had with him on that. He's like, that's the plan. That's what we're going to try and do. But then they're like, it's still ours. It's still, you know, programming that we have to do. Like, we can't just do it all for free. And those are the kind of conversations that they have with us.
It's like they got us lost in the woods a little bit, and then now they're charging us to get us back on track.
Right. So the other issue that we had, just so that, so that you guys as a board know, because when the implementation happened, it was before your time. So when Cerner had started this process and Oracle had taken over, essentially they got a rush of people that were coming into the system, especially on the community work side in particular. And what that did is it created a situation where they had a lot of deliverables and they didn't have enough people to do those deliverables. And so they actually, at that point in time, had consulted out with a number of different people to come in. So these aren't their 8 guys, right? This isn't their normal folks that were coming in doing implementations. It's not their 18. This was the consultant group that was coming into these facilities and doing these implementations to get them done. Because they were starting to lose clients because they were pushing them out because they didn't have enough staff to be able to do all these implementations. And so that's what we ended up with. We ended up with somebody like in our situation where majority of the folks at Pioneers were consultants. And I've done, this is the 6th implementation that I've done. It's the 4th Cerner implementation that I've done. And it was by far the absolute worst. Like not even, no comparison. It was just absolutely awful how it played out, how they came in to do it, how they set everything up. I will say that, we didn't do ourselves any favor in that process either. But from that standpoint, they still did not do a good job. And they have a number of implementations that they did that have the same issue. And so they're still playing catch up from these consultants and how that played out.
Too bad they don't have a lemon law for that one.
I was gonna say, that sounds like it's their
Yeah,
problem.
it sounds like more like a them problem than an our
Right.
problem.
Yeah.
you know? And even if you subcontract to work out, you're still
You're still
taking the responsibility.
Absolutely.
They're creating barriers for us, definitely.
What do you mean by when you said we didn't do ourselves any favors?
Well, we we didn't do ourselves any favors, meaning that some of the folks that should have been meeting and getting these things set up, like order sets and different things like that with the providers, those things didn't happen the way that they should have. The teams weren't meeting to do their builds like they should have. And so even though, yes, they did what they did on their end and that caused problems. If we did have the 18, for example, we still probably would have had issues. Not to the extent that we do now, but we still would have had issues because we did not implement it well. We did not do our part to the extent that we should have coming into that.
I think our implementation was a little bit better because some of the folks that were working at Pioneers, they deployed back here, and we had done some workflow. It's it's about workflow. So you said that the EMR, and there are several areas where this is a kind of a spreadsheet where you could input some information, but you could do it in different work setting and with different workflows. So our folks did a pretty good job, and actually, Revenue Cycle was one of the best products that we implemented. So we didn't see the delays in accounts receivable as Pioneer. But if you didn't set the workflow appropriately, and we had, in our experience here at ECMC, we had the oncology area and the clinics that did not do the workflow and validated that workflow. And what I mean by workflow is setting the order sets, setting how to register a patient, setting how you refill the medications, pulling information from the old system into the new system to populate the EMR. And they did suffer through the process of when we implemented. But the acute care side, they did very, very well. Now, let's go. We'll have to navigate through the system again.
Do you have any more questions from the board?
Thank you for your work on this, though, guys.
Thank you, boys, guys.
Keep it going.
All right. Now we move on to item E, discussion and possible action to approve logo refinement recommendations.
I'll just give a brief. If you look at the logo and the EKG, for us, Coco people look like that was a little B-Tech. We don't want to be associated with the GPAC and not the logo. We went back and refined. And on the other side, you can see a healthy EKG. So we want to incorporate that into the logo that was already approved. Because I kept looking at it and some of our clinical people looked at it and it's like, that doesn't look good.
It
So
doesn't look healthy.
anyway, you wanted to, that's what it's going to look like moving forward.
I like it.
Anything else, Matt?
No,
That's
I
how
want to see a
it,
couple examples, maybe slide 10, slide 11 there. How it would look at top. Pioneers. And how it would look on one of the.
Better. See, the one thing that I like on where it's in Imperial Valley Health, El Centro Hospital, Imperial Valley Healthcare District, like I feel like that's a mouthful.
the name of the hospital.
Because I thought we were like marketing as Imperial Valley Health, El Centro Hospital, Imperial Valley Health,
Yeah.
Pioneers Memorial Hospital.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
you don't
think
have to have
predominantly, we need to have Imperial County, Imperial Valley Health District, whether abbreviations or whatever. And then the smaller print should be the campuses.
Yeah,
No, we weren't doing the Imperial Valley Health Pioneers yet because we'd have to do another change. And we're waiting for all of the CHOWs and stuff to come through because the DBA is the Pioneers Memorial Hospital. And we would have to change it to Imperial Health. And
you have to do that to put on the sign.
for
Well,
DBA.
We
Put it on
have,
the sign?
no, I don't think so for the signage. I mean,
Like,
the signage is we have you don't really, in Imperial County, I don't think you register your DBA.
No.
So, but we have the DBA in the CHOW as Imperial Valley Healthcare District, DBA Pioneers Memorial Hospital. But that's on the license. So I mean, still as an entity, you can still be Imperial Valley Healthcare District,
Right, right.
formal name, but the signage can say Imperial Valley Health, Pioneers Memorial Hospital. Or isn't that what you guys said, or
Yeah.
Pioneers Campus, or I forget.
We rename our El Centro Clinic, Alexaville Clinic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Clinical Center Clinic,
Probably.
Central Hospital, Pioneers Hospital.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying, because you said a mouthful, so I need to have an understanding of the question at hand. Is it that it should just say El Centro Hospital with Imperial Valley Healthcare District under it without the Imperial Valley Health El Centro Hospital? Is that what you're saying is too much? Or
I thought we were, yeah, like all of it. I thought like we were gonna do like a marketing thing for like, I get the EKG thing, but I thought we were going through like a whole marketing thing that like talked about like when we did the naming exercise where it was like, Patty gave the example of like UCSD Health, Jacobs Medical Center, and like that's how it's branded.
That's correct.
That should be.
And that's not what I'm really seeing here, if that makes sense. I don't know. But I thought we were gonna kind of go, like, I totally agree with the EKG, like the colors, the different gradients, things, but like the logo itself seems off than what was approved at the board.
So you're just talking about removing the IVHD.
I don't even know, like, it looks very,
There's a lot there.
yeah, there's a ton there. And it's just like a
removing the Imperial?
I don't even know. I mean, I thought we were gonna go through and like do like a rebrand thing with, keep the EKG thing and then like go through, but like, you look at it on the sign and it's like, geez.
So it's, Pioneers and El Centro, it's not Imperial Valley Healthcare District.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like still very separate. Like I thought it was gonna be like big Imperial Valley Health, El Centro Hospital,
Right.
Imperial Valley Health, Pioneers Memorial Hospital, like that's what I thought. That's how I kind of took it.
So the Imperial Valley Health would go on top of
Yeah.
Pioneers Memorial Hospital as well.
Yes, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Do we want to just go with Imperial Valley Health or Healthcare District?
I wanna, I mean, I wanna, I think, I don't know, I want to talk about a marketing plan. You know, approved, I think, I mean, I don't know, I could be very wrong from, that was what I remember.
Or it's IV.
I remember the same, yeah.
I remember the same,
We were basically following suit what they do with UCS.
Correct, and then we said that the only thing was we weren't doing that right away with Pioneers because we couldn't do the DBA yet because we had the chows out. And once the chows come through and finish, then we could make that adjustment to do the same thing with the Imperial Valley Health, because that was the end result. Imperial Valley Health, Pioneers Memorial Hospital, Imperial Valley Health, El Central Hospital, Imperial Valley Health, Plexico Clinic, Imperial Valley Health, Little Central Clinic, Imperial Valley Health Brawley Clinic, Imperial Valley Health Children's Clinic.
yeah.
So you are absolutely right on that, but we had a placeholder for Pioneers because of the chows. That we had to get them approved because the DBAs that were on there were just for Pioneers Memorial Hospital. And we wanted the name to be the same because like in the DBA for that we've done for the chows, it's Imperial Valley Healthcare District, DBA, Imperial Valley Health Central Hospital.
Yeah, but like that doesn't go on a logo.
No.
You know what I mean? Like your DBA or whatever's on your official license doesn't go on the logo. You know what I mean?
Yeah, your logo.
That's, your logo's your logo.
That's your logo.
Right, but it's the logo is just this, the cross with that in it. That's the logo. The other stuff is the nomenclature, like our naming. Like that's not technically logo. And so when we had talked about it before, we said that we wanted that to be what people recognized was the logo, because you could put it with any of that stuff, because that'll be part of every logo. And that's the piece that makes it IVHD.
I don't think
Is
so.
that
Right,
I don't
but
think that's right.
early on, people don't know what that logo is, so you have to have
Yeah,
verbiage in order to people to associate this is this logo, and then over time, then you can remove the name.
So now that the license is done, right? We got that approval. Is the board contemplating on the name being Imperial Valley Health Pioneer Hospital, Imperial Valley Health Central Hospital, Imperial Valley Health Plexico Clinic, Imperial Valley Health? Is that what the recommendation is?
I think that was the.
yeah, I thought that was what was approved.
But do health or healthcare district?
Yeah.
Just health.
It's just that should be held, like you see it, like you see San Diego, you see,
Health.
yeah.
And it could just be you know, if it's somewhere, a service of Imperial Valley
Yeah.
Healthcare District, you know what I mean? Like it can just be,
I think
I don't know, I feel like marketing's super important, so we can approve the logo change and then at a future meeting, bring back with the fonts and everything. Yeah,
Just one comment, the fading logo is fine, but I think the two-color logo is still sharp. No, I think
which one?
the healthy heart, like this one here, which is not faded, just the two colors.
Oh, right.
I think that stands out pretty good. And it's saying here that maybe you want to adopt the gradient logo, and then for certain things, you're gonna use this. You know, my opinion only, I feel like this is real simple and it's cheaper to do.
Oh, you're saying, you like that.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
And it's, in long run, it's cheaper because gradient logos cost more.
Right, those do cost more.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
And you want to simplify it so it's just crisp.
Okay.
My opinion.
yeah. I like it. I mean,
Yeah, and it's easy to swap out colors, whatever, you know.
okay, so do I have a motion to approve the EPG
Move.
and the colors?
Second.
A motion by Eric Goyen and a second by Berger. All in favor, say aye.
I just want to make sure, because as it is in here, there is a gradient, and we were talking about doing without the gradient, so what is the motion?
No, we're only approving to change the
EKG.
KG.
Yeah, and they're bringing everything else back in like a marketing. plan
And I
that's-
actually would like to add to the motion that we adopt we don't do the gradient logo, we just do a solid.
Two color logo.
Two color logo.
I would bring it back because you know, I mean, they're bringing back logos with that are going on with signs and everything, like, and so I don't wanna mix it up now, if they wanna take everything and just fix.
Yeah, but I'm not saying about colors. You can adapt different colors depending on what background it is.
Yeah,
But a gradient logo on certain backgrounds is terrible.
So it's just a nixing the gradient.
Mixing the gradient, making it solid, two color, whatever the colors are, and using the new, healthy.
We're already turning around
No,
healthcare.
no, you're not. We can make the changes. We can do some boards of what it would look like for the hospital's name and bring it back so that you guys could.
I'd like an actual like marketing plan, you know what I mean? Like, there's one thing to use a gradient logo on your email, but you know, Felipe's correct, it's another to put it on a sign. Yeah, I don't know, I feel like this is, marketing's huge and your name is huge, and it's like, this is super rushed. I live in the EKG.
Marketing has a marketing plan. It's bring back. There, there.
So the motion on the table is to adopt the normal EKG line. Approve a 1 or 2 color logo, solid color logo, and bring everything else, including colors and fonts, formats, and hospital and clinic names to a future board meeting.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. That we're on the marketing committee.
Or outreach committee.
Advocacy.
Yeah, we have I'll give you the call.
I think it's advocacy or something. But that brings us right into
I know.
item F, discussion regarding IVHD committee assignments. So as we're anticipating getting another, you know, still anticipating possibly getting another board member, maybe, maybe not. And then, you know, Mr. Director Goyne doesn't have committee, so I was like, you know what, let's just, there's only one that's been started. Let's.
Put them on the logo committee.
So he's already going, like, he bought himself an assignment, so. And I am the chair of that committee for the bylaws, so. But yeah, so I was like, all right, let's rearrange, reshuffle.
Are we gonna wait until the next?
Yes.
meeting When we have a new, we know who the other board member is gonna be.
Yeah, I think that's the
That was-
recommendation is to table this item for the next board meeting.
For the next board meeting,
So that the board can reappoint a committee assignments.
yeah. Reappoint or even do it at the March 6th meeting. But yeah, we can. Right, do we have any management reports?
Couple, things just want to make you aware of, on the finance side. So, if you guys remember, we talked about the IGD payments that are coming up. We do have on February 20th, about 3.5 million that will go out, for the IGT payments. We will get back 8.6 million, for that payment, but it is usually about 60 days, for us to receive that back. So just want to make you guys aware of that. Obviously at this next board meeting that you see on the 26th, the financials won't include that because it's in this month, so it'll happen next month, but just making sure you guys are aware there's 3.5 million that's going out and we're anticipating 8.6 coming back. The other big thing I want to make you guys aware of is we did get, you guys here a few months ago approved the cost report and we did send that in. They sent it back telling us it was approved. It had to do with the changeover with Pioneers and IVHD. And so they want a few things on that. The one thing that they're telling us as well is because they rejected the cost report, they're not going to pay us a time frame. So we're in the process of working with them to say, hold on, like there is a trying to remember what it is. It's one of the guiding principles for the change of ownership The way that that one reads in the regulation, it gives you specific things that if you fall into this category, then you need to file that cost report. We didn't fall into any of those categories, which is why Baker Tilly was like, you guys don't have to do it. So we have to essentially try to plead our case with them. Baker Tilly's going to work on the stuff on the background while we're pleading our case with them to try and make sure that they don't stop paying any money and help them understand what the situation is. But just making sure that you guys are aware that that's what's happened at this point in time. Just got that 2 days ago. And so we're working through that process right now. I don't know. I mean, because those are the Medicare payments. So.
What did we receive the year before?
Oh, no, this is like our payments.
Payments. Okay.
Yeah, like they stopped paying us because our cost report, because we were getting money back on the cost report, but they also like until the cost report is finished, like, because that's kind of how they'll set rates as well.
Right.
And so they're not paying us anything at this point in time until we get that fixed. So if things play out the normal way, it's like a potentially up to 60 days, but we're trying to negate that and make sure that it's, maybe a week or two and that's it. So. We'll keep you posted at the next board meeting. We'll give you an update on where we're at with that, and hopefully we'll have some good news at that point in time, but that's where we're at with that one. If there are no questions on that, the last thing I just wanted to let you guys know that we're working on, we heard Mr. Bill talk about some of the importance of the staff and how important it is to know, kind of have your thumb on the pulse of what's going on with them and how they bill and so forth. One of the first things that we decided that we're doing together is we're actually going to do a score survey. So we've done that here. If you guys remember, we presented that last year. We're going to do that as a full organization. And so you guys, and this is going to be happening, within months after we go that we're merged. So that'll give us a really good indicator of where we're sitting. With how that's played out. And then next year, we'll be able to see where we're at that point in time as well. So just letting you guys know that that is coming. It is going to be for the entire organization when we do that. So we'll present it. And we're doing that specifically with that in mind to be able to look at that and make sure that we're paying attention to the things that they're going to make us aware of as we go through that process. So that's all I've got for you at this point.
I had a question about the cost report that you were talking about earlier. So what's the alternative if they don't approve it?
The alternative.
Yeah, what is?
Like, that's why I said it'll be about 60 days out, because what we have to do is we have to file an intermediate cost report for Pioneers Memorial Hospital District until 1/21/2025. And then we have to file the IVHD cost report that's only from 1/21/25 to the end. And so that's why it got rejected, because they're saying, oh, it's only supposed to be part of it and not the full year. And so we just have to send them the right ones, which takes time, and then they have to review it and approve it, which that's why it's 60 days. But we're trying to appeal to them and say, look, you should still be paying us our rate as it currently stands. We'll get you the new stuff. We don't think we have to do that because it's not defined in the regulation as far as what happened to us with the successor agency. But like I said, we'll have Baker Tilly working on that in the background just in case they don't. Like there's well, we're not gonna, we think it falls in this category, so it's just gonna be that way. If that's the case, like I said, it'll be about 60 days.
Any other questions from Chris? Any? We work this out.
Yeah, so the CNO report will be presented at the next board meeting. However, I did want to share with you that we are working towards transitioning from DNB to Joint Commission. ECRMC is expecting Joint Commission any day now. We're thinking probably Monday or Tuesday they're going to be here. And they've been working really hard to be prepared for that and have a successful survey. And in addition to that, today we had a meeting where we had a room full of department leaders from both campuses working together to get us prepared. So they're the experts right now. They're there to help guide us and get us prepared. At the same time, they're working on their own survey. So I was pretty proud of the team. a lot of collaboration going on, and I wanted to share that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Our executive report, no legal. Problem. Alright. So with that, we can go into closed session. 19th.